Jane Fonda is sharing insight into the last days of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele Reiner. The two-time Oscar winner said she met with the longtime couple just one day before they were found dead at their Los Angeles home December 14. Rob and Michele Reiner were wonderful, caring, smart, funny, generous people, always coming up with ideas for how to make the world better, kinder.
He looked happy, he looked healthy, and within hours, he was gone. That's how Jane Fonda described seeing her longtime friend Rob Reiner just before the tragedy that stunned Hollywood. What happened that night and what led to the unthinkable reveals a heartbreaking story of family, fame, and final moments no one could have predicted.
The Reiners had attended a star-studded Christmas party hosted by Conan O'Brien on December 13th.
It was supposed to be a night of laughter, music, and holiday cheer. Hollywood's elite gathered under the warm glow of Christmas lights at Conan O'Brien's Pacific Palisades home. Among them, Jane Fonda, radiant as ever at 87, and her dear friends Rob and Michele Reiner. They smiled for photos, they hugged old friends. They looked, as Jane later said, healthy and happy. But what no one realized that night was that it would be their last.
Hollywood icon
Rob Reiner.
Rob Reiner.
Director Rob Reiner and his wife Michele are
This is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family.
Within 24 hours, that same couple would be gone, found lifeless inside their Brentwood home in a scene so devastating it left even the most seasoned LAPD detectives shaken. The call came in at 3:38 p.m. The daughter's screams echoed down the quiet street, and by nightfall, headlines around the world were asking the same chilling question. What happened inside the Reiner home? Jane Fonda's words, posted on Instagram the next day, carried the weight of a woman who had just seen joy turn to tragedy.
In an Instagram tribute December 15th, next to a photo of the couple, the actress writes in part, quote, "I saw them night before last, looking healthy and happy. I am reeling with grief, stunned."
I saw them night before last. They looked healthy and happy. I am reeling with grief, stunned. Her message wasn't just a tribute, it was a haunting reminder of how fragile life can be, even for Hollywood royalty, because behind the flashbulbs and red carpets, there was a storm no one saw coming. And the moment it broke, it changed everything. But what really happened in those final hours, and what Jane noticed that night, would leave the world speechless. This story is about understanding, not accusation, and every detail shared here is meant to bring context, not conclusion.
Rob Reiner and Nick got into a, quote, very loud argument. His behavior at Conan's house alarmed the guests because it was so bizarre. One of the guests recalled Rob Reiner telling his son his behavior was inappropriate.
As the laughter echoed through Conan O'Brien's Christmas party, not everyone was caught in the glow of good cheer. Toward the back of the room, guests began to notice something unsettling. Rob Reiner's son Nick was pacing, restless, erratic, eyes darting as if searching for something only he could see. Some guests whispered that he seemed off, asking people strange questions, fixated on who was really famous in the room. What started as awkward curiosity soon turned into visible tension. Then it happened, a sharp exchange between father and son. Voices rose. Rob, calm but firm, tried to lead Nick outside. Those nearby said Nick's tone shifted from pleading to angry in seconds. One witness later recalled that the air just went cold. The music kept playing, but the energy had changed. Jane Fonda, across the room, noticed Rob's face, strained but composed, as he placed a hand on his son's shoulder and guided him away. Moments later, the family quietly left the party. Outside, the December wind carried away the last sounds of laughter as the Reiners drove home. For many guests, it was a moment they quickly forgot, just another tense family interaction in a crowded room. But for Rob and Michele, that ride home would mark the start of their final night together. Because behind that closed car door, the argument wasn't over. It was only beginning. And what followed would spiral far beyond anything they could have imagined. The next morning, Brentwood woke beneath a calm December sun. On that quiet street lined with palm trees and picture-perfect lawns, the Reiners' house looked peaceful. Lights still strung from the night before, a wreath hanging untouched on the front door. But inside, an eerie stillness had settled. No phone calls, no movement, just silence. By mid-afternoon, concern turned into dread. Rob and Michelle's daughter, Romy, had been trying to reach them all morning. When her calls went unanswered, she drove to the house with a friend. What she found would change her life forever. As she stepped through the front door, the festive scent of pine and cinnamon candles still lingered, but something felt terribly wrong. Upstairs, in the master bedroom, Romy froze.
The daughter, I guess, that she found them and that the mom was still alive, and apparently she called the ambulance and went in the ambulance with her mother. Michele died in the ambulance, but had enough time to tell her daughter that it was Nick.
Her father was there, unresponsive, her mother nearby. The shock hit like a physical wave. Her friend dialed 911, her voice trembling as she begged for help. Within minutes, the Brentwood calm shattered. Sirens wailed. Patrol cars and fire engines surrounded the home. Neighbors stood on sidewalks, whispering in disbelief as police taped off the property. 2 lives were gone. 2 legends of kindness, laughter, and activism gone in an instant. Detectives worked quietly, faces pale under flashing lights. This wasn't random. There were no signs of forced entry, no robbery, just a tragedy far too close to home. But when the first name of interest surfaced, even seasoned investigators struggled to process it because it belonged to someone inside the family. By nightfall, what had begun as whispers of disbelief had become a full-blown media storm. News vans lined the streets, their satellite dishes pointed toward the darkened Brentwood home. Reporters spoke in hushed tones, waiting for confirmation. And then came the breaking update from LAPD headquarters. An arrest had been made. The suspect wasn't a stranger, an intruder, or a fan gone too far. It was their son, Nick Reiner, brightest. The name sent a chill through Hollywood. Nick wasn't just anyone, he was the boy Rob had fought for, the child he'd once called his greatest challenge and greatest love. From a young age, Nick's life had been a battle with addiction. He'd first entered rehab as a teenager, cycling through programs nearly 20 times by his 30s. In 2015, he and his father even turned that struggle into art, co-writing Being Charlie.
This is a movie about addiction.
It's a movie about people that are struggling with substance abuse, and we were trying to take a look at it from both the person who's going through it and how it affects the family and the relationship between the kid and the father and son.
A film about a young man trying to escape the grip of substance abuse. It was meant to be a redemption story. Instead, it became a haunting reflection of what was still to come. When police arrested Nick near USC that night, he appeared dazed, almost detached. The officer's report mentioned no resistance, only confusion. The world that had once embraced Rob Reiner's compassion was now forced to face an unbearable truth. That love, even the deepest kind, sometimes isn't enough to save the ones we fight hardest for. And as the investigation deepened, one voice rose from the grief, a friend who had seen it all just hours before, Jane Fonda. The morning after the world learned of Rob and Michele Reiner's deaths, Jane Fonda opened her phone, hands trembling. Messages, news alerts, and calls poured in, but none of it felt real. Just 48 hours earlier, she'd stood beside them, laughing beneath the twinkle of Christmas lights. Now, she was staring at headlines about their murder. In that moment of disbelief, she did what she's always done. She spoke from the heart. Her Instagram post, shared with a photo of Rob and Michele smiling arm in arm, stopped the internet in its tracks.
Rob and Michele Reiner were wonderful, caring, smart, funny, generous people, always coming up with ideas for how to make the world better, kinder.
They were wonderful, caring, funny, generous people. I saw them night before last, looking healthy and happy. I am reeling with grief, stunned. Her words carried a weight no reporter could replicate, a mix of shock, love, and helpless sorrow. For Jane, the connection went beyond friendship. Rob and Michele had been helping her relaunch the Committee for the First Amendment, a modern revival of the group her father, Henry Fonda, once formed during Hollywood's McCarthy era. Together, they believed in using their voices to fight fear and silence. That shared mission had bonded them deeply. In her tribute, Jane didn't speak as a celebrity. She spoke as a woman mourning friends she adored, stunned by how quickly light can turn to darkness. And as her message spread across the world, people began to ask the question that haunted her most. How could 2 souls so full of goodness meet such a fate? To millions, Rob and Michele Reiner weren't just a Hollywood couple. They were the heartbeat of compassion and creativity. Their love story began on a film set in 1989, when Michele, a talented photographer, caught the eye of the man directing. When Harry met Sally, that spark became a partnership spanning more than 3 decades. One built on laughter, shared purpose, and an unshakable belief in using their platform for good. Together, they raised 3 children, Jake, Nick, and Romy, instilling the values of empathy and truth that define their own lives. Rob's career was legendary. From Stand By Me to A Few Good Men, he shaped stories that explored humanity at its most raw and real. But behind the director's chair, he was a husband and father, the kind who showed up for school plays and family dinners. Michele was his balance, graceful, grounded, and fiercely kind. She photographed life as it was, unfiltered and honest. Friends say the Reiners' home was filled with warmth, laughter echoing through hallways, endless discussions about politics, justice, and art. Yet beneath that light, there had been years of quiet struggle. Nick's battles tested the family's strength again and again. Still, Rob and Michele never gave up on him.
What I feel after all of this is it's not about punishing. If somebody has, is struggling and has difficulties, you don't punish him for that. He's my son, I love him, it doesn't matter. That he's more important than anything that could happen to me.
They believed love could save anyone. Now that same love story, the one that inspired movies movie endings and political causes alike had ended in tragedy, leaving behind a legacy too beautiful and too broken to forget. Long before Rob Reiner became one of Hollywood's most respected storytellers, he was simply Carl Reiner's son, the boy who grew up watching his father make the world laugh. Carl, the legendary creator of The Dick Van Dyke Show, taught Rob that kindness and humor were the true measures of a man. Their bond was built on creativity, respect, and a deep mutual pride that spanned generations. When Carl passed away peacefully in 2020 at the age of 98, Rob called him his guiding light. That loss reshaped him, but also reminded him of what family meant. Now, 5 years later, that legacy had been shattered in a way his father could never have imagined. The Reiner name, once synonymous with laughter and love, was suddenly tied to grief and tragedy. Friends said that when the news broke, many in Hollywood couldn't help but think of Carl, the patriarch who'd spent a lifetime celebrating the joy of family. The contrast was unbearable. For decades, the Reiners represented the best of show business, a dynasty built not on scandal, but sincerity. Carl passed his wisdom to Rob, who shared it with his own children. But somewhere along that lineage of laughter, the pain of one generation consumed the next. And in that haunting symmetry, between a father who died surrounded by love and a son who lost his life to violence, the world saw the rise and fall of one of Hollywood's most beloved families. As the reality of the tragedy sank in, the entertainment world seemed to stop. Within hours, tributes began to pour in from every corner of Hollywood. Michelle Obama fought back tears on Jimmy Kimmel Live, recalling how she and Barack were supposed to see the Reiners that same evening. They were two of the most decent, courageous people you could ever meet, she said softly. Billy Crystal called Rob the brother I never had. Barbra Streisand posted a photo of them laughing together, writing, "He made us believe in humanity. Now we grieve its fragility." Outside the Reiner home, candles flickered through the night. Fans left flowers, letters, and movie posters signed with words like, "Thank you for the memories," and "You changed lives." Reporters stood respectfully at a distance, their voices low, aware that this wasn't just another Hollywood story, it was a national heartbreak. The couple's daughter, Tracy, shared a short message that broke hearts across the internet. "I came from the greatest family ever. I don't know what to say. I'm in shock." Soon after, Jake and Romy Reiner released a joint statement.
Jake and Romy Reiner said, "Word cannot even begin to describe unimaginable pain we are experiencing. They weren't just our parents, they were our best friends."
They weren't just our parents, they were our best friends. Even the city of Los Angeles dimmed the lights on several landmarks in their honor. The outpouring of love proved what everyone already knew. Rob and Michele Reiner weren't simply famous, they were beloved. But as tributes filled the air, one painful question refused to fade. Could this tragedy have been stopped before it was too late? Behind the smiles, the interviews, and the Hollywood glamour, the Reiners had been fighting a quiet war, one that few outside their closest circle ever saw. For years, Rob and Michele tried everything to help Nick heal. Therapists, family interventions, spiritual retreats, nothing seemed to reach him for long. Friends say Rob would cancel meetings to attend recovery sessions, while Michele wrote him letters of encouragement tucked gently under his bedroom door. They weren't naive, they were desperate parents, clinging to hope that love could outlast the darkness. Neighbors often saw Nick jogging with his father in the mornings, both trying to reclaim some sense of normalcy. At times, it worked. They'd laugh, share coffee, talk about old films. But those moments of calm were fragile, easily shattered by relapse, guilt, and the endless cycle of repair and heartbreak. In private, Michele confided to a friend that she feared one day the sadness would win. What makes this story so painful isn't just the loss, it's the effort. This was a family that tried. They faced the stigma of addiction with compassion, not denial. They fought for healing when it would have been easier to walk away. But sometimes, even the strongest hearts can't carry another's pain forever. And so, when Jane Fonda looked back on that final night, the laughter, the light, the love, she wasn't just remembering her friends. She was remembering two souls who never stopped fighting for family, even when it cost them everything. In the end, the story of Rob and Michele Reiner isn't just about tragedy, it's about the fragile beauty of love, the weight of family, and how even the brightest lights can flicker when no one's watching. Their final night stands as a heartbreaking reminder that behind fame, cameras, and applause, real people fight invisible battles. Jane Fonda's words, simple, human, and raw, cut through the noise. They looked healthy and happy. Sometimes that's all it takes to realize how little we truly see of someone's pain. Hollywood will move forward, as it always does. New films will premiere, red carpets will roll out, and the cameras will flash again. But for those who knew the Reiners, this wound won't fade. It will linger as both a caution and a memory of what love tried to protect but couldn't save. And if this story gripped your heart, you'll want to see what we uncovered in our previous investigation. A deep dive into how another beloved actor's world unraveled behind the scenes of childhood fame, revealing the silent cost of the spotlight. Because here on A Celeb Spotlight, where the fame meets the truth. We don't just tell celebrity stories, we reveal the real lives behind them. Stay tuned, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the truth isn't always in the headlines. Sometimes it's hidden in the moments no one talks about. This video reflects a narrative shaped by public conversation.